Here's how to pick the best running shoes for Achilles tendonitis to run pain free. I've provided these same recommendations to help hundreds of runners who are struggling with pain and stiffness in their Achilles tendon to get back to pain free running for over 20 years as a running physical therapist and coach. I want to share with you the 4 key features that you want to look for when shopping for the right running shoe to run pain free with Achilles tendonitis. And I also want to share with you the one shoe that you might want to avoid if you have Achilles tendonitis. So, whether you have the classic mid portion Achilles tendinopathy, or if you are having the insertional Achilles tendonitis pain, or whether you are an experienced marathoner or you're a beginner runner who's just starting out and you're feeling pain and stiffness along your Achilles tendon in the morning that worsens with running up hills or going downstairs, and you've tried icing, resting, stopping running, and taking some anti-inflammatory medications, and you're just frustrated that the pain keeps coming back whenever you try to run faster or build back those long runs again, this is for you. And if you found this training years after recording and don't think that the running shoes that I'm going to share with you are really relevant anymore because they don't make that model anymore, running shoes are changing so frequently nowadays. And that's totally okay because I'm not going to recommend a specific model or brand, but I'm going to teach you the 4 key features to test and look for in a running shoe that will be relevant today, next year, and in 20 years from now if you have Achilles tendonitis. Now, the best part is that when you find the right shoe that has all of these 4 features I'm going to share with you, you won't have to actually stop running and take 4 weeks off to quote unquote rehab your Achilles pain. You can actually stay running and heal from this injury. And that's what the athletes that I work with have been able to do. So let's get started with my best running shoe tips for Achilles tendonitis. What heel drop is best for Achilles pain? And that's probably the most common questions that I get from runners. And when we're looking at a running shoe, the stack height, so we're going to use this shoe as an example. The stack height is really the thickness of the midsole. And it is how much midsole foam and how thick that foam is from the bottom of your shoe. And it can vary from 24 millimeters, let's say, in this shoe, to upwards toward 40 millimeters in a kind of standard super shoe, which is technically the maximum stack height that you can have. And this shoe right here has a lot of stack height, right? This one is actually quote unquote illegal for competitive racers, where this is actually 49 millimeters in the heel and it has actually 44 in the toe. And the heel to toe drop is really the difference in height that is between the sole of the heel and the sole in the forefoot of the shoe. So, for example, if we had, let's go with the Ghost, the Brooks Ghost, which is a very popular shoe that a lot of runners use. This is actually not a Brooks Ghost. This is the Launch GTS. This is my wife's shoe here. That's why it's a little smaller than the other shoes that I'm going to hold up for you. But let's use the Ghost as an example. The Ghost has let's pretend it's a Ghost, right? Has a 25 millimeter heel of the midsole. And in the forefoot, it's actually 13. So 25, we take 25 minus 13. That's going to give us 12 millimeters of drop. Okay, so that would be the heel drop of this shoe. This Launch shoe is actually a 10 millimeter drop, so it's a little lower, but it's the difference from the heel to the toe, right? And if we look at the Brooks Ghost Max, which is this shoe, this is actually 28 millimeters in the heel and 22 in the forefoot. So 28 minus 22 is a 6 millimeter drop. So that is what we're referring to when we're talking about heel drop. And this is where it gets really confusing when you want to know what is the best running shoe for Achilles tendonitis, as running shoe brands are constantly changing. And that's why I really wanted to create this video for you, because I want to teach you the principles, because things have like gotten crazy in the running shoe brand space, where 4 years ago, the only brand that would have a stack height like this would be something like a Hoka shoe, right? Like Hoka was kind of the first brand to come on with these higher stack height, lots of cushioning underneath the shoe. And nowadays, almost all shoe brands have their version of a higher stack height shoe that is well cushioned, like the Hoka. So the Ghost is like Brooks' version of that. Even New Balance, their shoes have a higher stack height than they traditionally have had 5-10 years ago. So whereas, you look at something like an Ultra, this has always been a lower stack height. It's like low to the ground, supposed to be a minimalist shoe. And even Hoka nowadays have a shoe that's actually a larger stack height. And it even has a shoe that isn't a zero drop shoe, because they came onto the scene being one of the first kind of shoe brands that have a zero drop. And a zero drop, like we were just talking about, that heel drop is literally 24 millimeters in the heel, 24 millimeters in the forefoot. So it's a straight line. It's no drop. Okay. This is a zero drop shoe. So that is the Ultra Escalante as kind of a example of a shoe that has a zero drop. Now, the flatter the heel drop, the more stress and load goes to the Achilles tendon, the plantar fascia, and the metatarsals. The higher the heel drop will load more of your knees, your quads, and unloads your glutes, hamstrings, and calf muscles. So all the muscles on the back of our leg. And if you don't have the strength in your calf muscles, the foot stability, or if you actually have stiff ankles, then you're going to have more strain to your Achilles tendon with a lower heel drop shoe like this Ultra. And you may benefit from a higher heel drop shoe like the Brooks Ghost that we were just talking about before. A higher heel drop shoe is going to help take strain off your Achilles, calf, plantar fascia when running. Therefore, it can be effective. It can be an effective tool in allowing you to keep running while your body heals from Achilles tendonitis. However, the key is to actually strengthen those, what we call posterior chain muscles, with strength training, so you can run without developing Achilles pain in the future. Therefore, I do see this running shoe feature as more of a short-term fix while currently dealing with Achilles pain versus a long-term solution. Long-term, I really want you to dedicate run-specific strengthening exercises with a focus on the posterior chain muscles, glutes, hamstrings, calves. And I will attach my level 1 strength for runners 25-minute workout to this training, in which you can follow along with me, and I'll take you through the 7 best exercises runners can start with for run specific strength. So a higher heel drop shoe will offload the Achilles tendon, allow for controlled rest and loading, which is important in healing, not total rest. We want controlled load, controlled rest, so you can stay running, and then allows us to shift forces from that foot and ankle to the knee, which might not be a great idea if you have a history of runner's knee or IT band pain. If you don't have any history of those aches and pains, those haven't traditionally been a problem for you, then I would definitely recommend, for a short-term solution, thinking about and choosing a higher heel drop shoe. So I did share the example of the Brooks Ghost, the traditional Ghost shoe. It's a popular shoe out there. It's got a 12 millimeter drop. Another shoe that has been working well for those who are with Achilles pain is currently the Mizuno Wave Inspire 19 is the version at the time of this recording. It's got a 12 millimeter drop as well. The other shoe that I see a lot of runners like and use is the Asics Gel Kayano. That's got a 10 millimeter drop. And then for the most part, all of your Saucony shoes, like the Speed, which are these guys right here. They have an 8 millimeter drop, as well as the Saucony Pro, which is their super shoe, has got an 8 millimeter drop. Their Elite also has an 8 millimeter drop. And then we start to kind of go down from there. And this is where I probably wouldn't recommend if you are dealing with Achilles pain. Something like the New Balance 1080 has a 6 millimeter drop. I just mentioned before, the Brooks Ghost Max has a 6 millimeter drop as well. And then for the most part, most of your Hoka shoes have a 5 millimeter drop. So this shoe, though a great shoe, this is one of my favorite daily trainers, the Hoka Mach, but I don't have Achilles pain, right? Has a 5 millimeter drop. And like I said, most of the Hoka line is in that 5 millimeter. I think the Bondi has a 4 millimeter drop. And then your Ultra Escalante, it's got a 0 drop, so 0 millimeter. So we definitely want to stay away from this while you're having Achilles pain. And therefore, the most important feature to make sure your running shoe has, if you're currently healing from Achilles tendonitis, is a higher heel drop shoe. By the way, if this is our first introduction, first off, welcome. I'm Dr. Duane Scotti. I'm a running physical therapist, coach, educator, founder of Spark Healthy Runner, creator of the Healthy Runner podcast. And my mission is to preserve the health and longevity of runners everywhere by allowing you to get stronger, run faster, and enjoy lifelong injury-free running. And the second variable really relates to the running shoe heel counter cushioning for Achilles tendonitis. So what do I mean by that? This is especially important for those that have insertional Achilles tendonitis, meaning your pain is right where the tendon attaches down at the bone. And most likely, you might have a bump on the back of your heel bone. We call that a Haglund's deformity. And it's just an extra bone growth right where the tendon attaches. And you can also have a reddened area or a little pocket of swelling. And that's what we call a retrocalcaneal bursitis. But all of those features can occur if irritated with insertional Achilles tendinopathy. And this is really caused because the shoe is pressing into the back of your heel. And runners that I've worked with who have this insertional Achilles tendon pain will usually report more pain when walking around in, let's say, work boots. So if you worked with farmers, those that are working construction, those that are working in like a machine shop, right? You have like a hard kind of work boot surface in the heel counter, or female casual dress shoes, men's Oxford dress shoes. They're all hard in the back of the heel, or those that have rigid heeled running shoes, like this Saucony Endorphin Pro 3 does not have any cushion in the heel counter. So what winds up happening is the Achilles tendon is pressing and irritating into the back plastic of the heel counter. So it's almost like if you think of your Achilles tendonitis as like a bruise, if you had a bruise and you like pressed on a bruise, like that would hurt, right? So if there's no cushioning in your heel counter, that's going to irritate the tendon. And the whole goal of Achilles rehab is to decrease the pressure on the Achilles tendon. So the ultimate solution would be avoiding heeled shoes. So if you can wear slides or wear flip-flops, that would decrease your irritation to the Achilles tendon. But if you can't work in them, and you certainly can't run in them, right? So that's where a cushioned heel counter shoe is really going to come into play. And some of my favorites that have a nice, well cushioned heel counter. So if we look in here, the Ultra has a nice, soft heel counter. So there's a lot of padding back here. The other shoe that does a really nice job with this is this New Balance 1080 shoe. It's very well cushioned. There's a lot of cushioning in there, which again is not going to irritate the tendon, especially if you do have that insertional tendinopathy. So, kind of summarize there, what you want to avoid is wearing work boots, female casual dress shoes, men's dress shoes, or rigid heeled running shoes. And to kind of summarize here, that second feature that we're really looking for in a running shoe with Achilles tendonitis is a well cushioned heel counter, especially if you have that insertional Achilles pain. And proper shoe selection is just like one piece of the puzzle in getting over Achilles tendonitis. To get more specifics on Achilles tendonitis treatment and how to overcome it without having to stop running, I do have a download, and it's our Achilles tendonitis runner's guide to conquering Achilles pain. And you're going to get answers to some of the questions like, what is Achilles tendonitis? What causes it? What are the symptoms? How is it diagnosed? And most importantly, probably what you want to know is how to treat Achilles tendonitis immediately. So if you've had it for a couple of weeks, like that treatment is going to be different. And the specific exercises that you need to do at that point in time is going to be different than how to treat chronic Achilles tendonitis that you've been dealing with for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 2 years. I've seen runners with. So the severity of your Achilles pain and what stage it's in is going to dictate what is the proper treatment. And that's where we go over here. And then we talk about how do you prevent Achilles tendonitis from coming back. And these have been literally the tried, true, tested strategies that have kept all the runners that I've worked with as a running PT and coach running during their recovery. And then finally saying like, peace out, Achilles pain for good. So you can click the link that I'm going to have for you in the description to get your free download. And the third variable that I really want you to look for in a running shoe, if you have Achilles tendinopathy, is related to the heel counter stiffness. So a rigid and stiff heel counter may provide more stability and help with performance, but it will not help your Achilles tendon pain heal. And you can test the rigidity of your shoe by squeezing the heel counter. So, for instance, if I take this heel counter here, I squeeze it, wow, that moves a lot, right? Like this Ultra Escalante moves a whole bunch. And even the Saucony Pro 3 actually moves a good amount. And if I look at this Brooks Ghost Max, literally doesn't move. It is stiff, stiff, stiff. Does not move at all. If I look at this Hoka Skyward X, boom, that is rock hard stiff. This is like literally a work boot, right? This does not move at all. And if the Achilles is already irritated, right, your tendon is not going to like hard plastic insert that is rubbing against the back of the Achilles, like this Hoka Skyward X, right? This is too hard and firm. So, really, the third variable that I want you to look for in a running shoe, if you have Achilles tendinopathy, is seeking out a shoe with a soft, pliable heel counter, that it's got some give to it. Let's look at this. New Balance has a little bit of give. There's like the middle child, right? This is like moves a lot. Here's like the middle bear. And here's like the daddy bear, doesn't move at all, stiff. All right. So you want something that's going to be a little pliable there. So that's where, like I said, shoes are going to always change. So you're going to go in your running shoe store, you're going to pick up the shoe, and you're going to be like, oh, let me see if the heel counter moves. Oh, this one moves pretty good. But the downside to this shoe, as I mentioned before, is it's not well cushioned at all on the inside. All right. So this is where, right, you got like plus and minuses to different shoes, and you're going to have to like test these out. You're going to have to talk to those in the running shoe store. And honestly, they might not even know all this, especially if you have Achilles tendonitis. They're probably not going to know all these variables. So that's where you can go in and be like, okay, I want a higher heel drop shoe. I want one that actually moves, and I want one that has some padding on the inside. All right. And so now I want to know, which type of Achilles tendonitis do you have? Do you have insertional, more at the bottom part, or do you have the mid portion of the tendon that's about an inch, so it's like 2 to 6 centimeters, it can vary, up from that attachment into the bone? if you can, like, please leave it in the comments because I would love to be able to create future content specifically for what you are going through. And I do read all of my comments. So let me know below. And next, I'm going to share with you the fourth and final running shoe feature you should look for with Achilles tendon pain. But before I do that, if you're getting value from this and enjoying these tips for what to look for in a running shoe, I would greatly appreciate if you hit the like button so I can continue creating free content like this so you can maintain a strong mind, a strong body, and you can just keep running without Achilles pain. The last key feature I want you to test when getting a running shoe with Achilles tendonitis is related to running shoe heel counter height. So, what do I mean by that? And this is actually a new trend in running shoes lately. Heel counters that actually go higher up. So, like this Hoka Mach shoe that I mentioned, see how high this heel counter goes, right? That's pretty darn high. And the extreme of that would be this Hoka Skyward X shoe. Look how high this heel counter goes up. And if you have mid portion Achilles pain, so not the insertional, this could actually irritate that mid portion of the tendon, 2 to 6 centimeters above where it inserts into the bone. So this is might be something that would irritate your Achilles pain if you do have one of these shoes with a higher heel counter. So interestingly enough, the Saucony Elite, so this is one of the super shoes that Saucony has, does have a higher heel counter. So it goes high. However, you will notice it's got some extra padding in the top here. It's like soft and cushiony. And when we look at the flexibility of the heel counter, you will notice it's very flexible. There's literally no heel counter here. So it is kind of an interesting feel running in the shoe because it doesn't really have a heel counter, which feels weird and takes a while to get used to. But if you have Achilles tendonitis, and let's say you have a goal race, right? You have this goal marathon that you've been training for, you've run in super shoes before, and maybe the super shoe that you are running in right now is kind of irritating your Achilles tendon, you might want to try this Saucony Elite. As long as, again, they keep this feature in there. I'm not sure how long that will last, how many models and versions it will, but right now it does have this nice soft padding, and I can see this being really helpful for you if you're struggling with Achilles tendinopathy. But in general, the fourth feature that I really want you to look for is a lower or avoiding a high heel counter height if you have mid portion Achilles tendinopathy. And the one shoe that I want you to avoid with Achilles tendonitis is really going to be an ultra or zero drop shoe, especially if you've recently switched to zero drop shoes because you heard it was better for you. It was healthier for you. It would get your foot muscles to engage more. You would strengthen your foot muscles. And I'm here to tell you that, yes, all of that will happen if you gradually adapt to the demands of being in zero drop shoes and you actually work on strengthening your deep foot muscles and work your foot core and utilize all the Naboso products that I talk about also frequently that help strengthen our feet. But this is a slow progressive process. And trust me, like I've been there. Like I've been working on this process literally for 3 or 4 years now. And I do not feel like I would be able to run in a zero drop shoe yet. So it does take a while to make sure that you have the proper foot stability, foot activation, and depending upon your foot type as well. So whether or not you're really overpronated, you have like really flat arches, or you have really high cavus arches where you don't absorb shock very well. If you're in the middle and you have a neutral arch, then it's going to be more likely that you can actually transition into a zero drop shoe. But the other variables that are important is to look at your ankle mobility. And if it is lacking, then you're not going to have the ankle range of motion that is required for a zero drop shoe. And it's going to put more stress on your Achilles. So this is the number one reason that I wind up working with runners who have Achilles pain, is because they have recently transitioned to a zero drop shoe. So I'm not saying, again, that that's bad to do. And I agree with the theoretical principles and the theoretical model of gradually decreasing your heel drop height as you advance in your running journey. And that's something that I've been working on. And I do think that that is helpful for runners to improve their running form and prevent overstriding with running, especially if you struggle with overstriding. But it's got to be a gradual process. And it can't be done when you're ramping up training for a marathon or a half marathon. You're doing speed work. You're doing the longest long runs that you've done in like 2 years, right? Like, that's not the time to switch into a zero drop shoe. So if you're currently struggling with Achilles pain, this is definitely not the shoe for you right now. I'm not saying it's not going to be the shoe for you in the future. Once you get pain-free, once you really dedicate some progressive strengthening to your calf muscles, you do the Achilles tendon loading exercises that I have for you, you could eventually, most likely, run in a zero drop shoe. But while you're having pain right now, if you just switch out of that shoe, your symptoms are definitely going to reduce if you're currently running with Achilles pain. So just to kind of recap for you guys here, the 4 key features that I want you to look for when you go to your running shoe store and you're shopping for the right running shoe for Achilles tendonitis are: higher heel drop, 2, cushioned heel counter, 3, soft, pliable heel counter, and then 4, avoiding a high heel counter, especially if you have the mid portion Achilles tendon pain. And don't forget to download your free Achilles guide for runners ebook that contains bonus video content with specific actionable exercises on how to overcome this condition and not have to stop running. Get the download by going to learn.sparkhealthyrunner.com or click the link in the show notes. And you may be wondering, will I ever run again with Achilles tendonitis? You will, if you do the proper exercises. And these exercises that are in the download have been a game changer for my athletes who have overcome Achilles pain to get back to running and doing what they love, like Tiffany, who is actually a physical therapist herself and loved running 5K, 10K distances in her teens and 20s, but had not run for over 20 years. Right at age 45, she was excited to return to running with the ultimate goal of running her first half marathon. She tried gradually increasing the miles on her own, but repeatedly struggled with various aches and pains, with the most significant being a very painful case of insertional Achilles tendinopathy that was so severe when we started working together in the beginning. It was an 8 out of 10 pain, guys. So it was severe. And you might be thinking, if it's so severe, then I'm not ready to like start running. I'm not ready to actually start strengthening. That's not true either. She had to cancel a 10-mile race that she was signed up for and was unable to walk without limping. And Tiffany found the podcast and she really wanted to get her mental clearing miles in. But she was also nervous about how her body would respond given the level of pain she was in, right? Like I said, she's a medical professional. She kind of knows. And she was a little hesitant, like, hey, I'm having a lot of pain. I'm probably need to just rest it. Like, don't do anything, right? But then she was struggling and balancing with how bad she wanted to actually run. And over the course of the 4 months working together, her symptoms gradually improved, as did her running. And a couple of weekends ago, actually, Tiffany not only was able to complete her first half marathon feeling strong, happy, and Achilles pain free, but she finished in a time that far exceeded her expectations. And I'm just super proud of her. She crushed her first half marathon and like executed a perfect race day strategy. So I'm personally looking forward to seeing what Tiffany accomplishes this next year with more fun running adventures out in Colorado. And I also think of Amy, who is an amazing mother runner of 5 kids, who is quite an accomplished marathoner. She's been a Boston qualifier many times before, and she had many successful years of training and running, but was so discouraged when she was stuck in a year-long injury cycle. She thought her running days were over. She was in her late 40s, and she thought she would never again know like the feeling of a great long run on an early like Sunday morning, or that happy tiredness that comes after a track workout, or the race day excitement, or crossing a finish line that she really worked, for weeks and months to achieve. And Amy was in our Healthy Runner Facebook community, and she's been a long time listener of the podcast. And I was just excited that she connected with me, and she was excited that really, she can actually reach out to inquire about my one-on-one services in my Spark Back coaching program. And then during our 16 weeks working together, Amy went from barely running due to stubborn Achilles tendonitis back to slowly building a very strong base. And she thought she was going to have to turn her sneakers in for a yoga mat and a bike. And instead, she was back to running 5 days a week, feeling stronger all over, and crushed a 10-mile race, placing in our age group. So, most importantly, her Achilles pain was gone. And she is so very happy to be back to doing what she loves. And I also think of runners like Jason, who started running for mental health. He was training through Achilles pain during the New York City Marathon, and he didn't want to have to do that again for Berlin. So he was signed up for Berlin. He had some serious running goals, and he was shooting for like a 20-minute marathon PR, but was hesitant to get guidance due to the investment. And he was not only able to complete the hard training block, which included speed work that I programmed for him. And it really allowed Jason to actually hit his Berlin Marathon PR goals without Achilles pain. And then lastly, I think about runners like Katya, who had Achilles pain on both sides for months. And she was just frustrated on how it was impacting her running. She implemented the specific exercises to rehab her injury. And she was just so excited that she can do all that without having to stop running. And she not only achieved pain-free running by the end of the 16-week program, but PR'd her half marathon while working together by over 9 minutes. And then she went on to train and complete her first marathon in Chicago, and has actually gone on to run multiple world major marathons since then. So kudos to Katya. I love following her journey. Even though it has been a while since we worked together, I just love that what we're able to do together. And this is where I want to provide you the hope. And if you're wondering if you're ever run again with Achilles pain, the answer is yes. Like, these runners were just like you, and you can do it. These are just like 4 examples from the hundreds and hundreds of runners that have implemented the Spark method of overcoming Achilles pain to grow as a runner. My name is Dr. Duane Scotti, and my mission is to save the lives of runners everywhere by allowing them to enjoy lifelong injury-free running. I'm the founder of Spark Healthy Runner. And if you want to fast track your recovery and get clarity and focus like Tiffany, Amy, Jason, and Katya got, that's exactly what we do with our high touch point one-on-one Spark Healthy Runner coaching program, where I'm your running physical therapist and coach all in one. And we work with you to really blend the rehab exercise that you need for Achilles pain with strength training for running, with the actual run plan, and modify that run plan based upon how you're healing. So you can learn more about our Spark Healthy Runner signature coaching program and schedule a call now by going to learn.sparkhealthyrunner.com. It's really been great sharing these 4 running shoe tips with you today. These have been things, like I said, I've been sharing with the athletes I work with for years. And running shoes have changed so much, right? Like, over these past years, like I've just showed you. And hopefully you found it helpful. If you did, please hit that like button, subscribe so you don't miss the next video to help you get stronger, run faster, and enjoy lifelong injury-free running. And this training was all about picking the best running shoes for Achilles tendonitis. And running shoes don't matter unless you learn to fix your Achilles tendonitis for good by properly loading the tissue depending upon where you are in your recovery journey. Trying random exercises and not sure which Achilles exercise is best for you? Learn how to fix Achilles tendonitis with the exact exercises that have worked for mild, moderate, or severe Achilles tendon pain and will only take 5 minutes of your time in the video that I have for you next.